Welcome, Maggie. Thanks for joining us today. We would
Thank
love to hear from you about what you do and what your organization does.
Sure, yes. Okay, well, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity. Great to be here. So I'm currently a non-executive director of Metlifecare, and I'll explain in a minute what Metlifecare is. But I have previously worked in the retirement village and aged care industries in New Zealand for over 30 years. I know I look like I'm far too young, but that's the way it is. I've had quite a depth of experience in retirement villages almost from their inception in New Zealand. So currently I'm a non-executive director. So the company I work for is Metlifecare. They were founded in the middle of the 1980s, so almost the first organisation of its type in New Zealand. It's a privately held retirement village and aged care company, New Zealand only. So we've got 36 villages, 22 are co-located with care facilities, 6,900 residents, 2,100 staff, nearly 5,000 homes, and 468 assisted living, which is kind of like a bridge between independent living and care, and just over 1,000 care beds. So of the type of organisation that it is the second largest in New Zealand. It was a listed company, but in November 2020, it was bought 100% buyout by the Swedish infrastructure fund called EQT. So EQT owns it and runs Metlifecare, and I'm on the board of directors that supports that. And so when EQT took over as owners, they identified a few things. One was the need to sort of accelerate the build program and to renovate, remodel and repurpose some of the existing stock, the houses and the care centres. So there's now a large development pipeline with 25 projects underway. And also we recognised that for the size of our organisation, we didn't have enough aged care beds, and that a group like ours should have about 20% of its portfolio in aged care beds, and we actually only had 9%. So we're currently at 16% and on our way to 20%. So one of our ambitions is to grow our aged care beds and to achieve dementia-friendly accreditation for our organisation, and to run, vibrant retirement villages for fit independent seniors that come to us.
And what does care philosophy and care leadership mean to you?
Yeah, so I think we are, I think it's about enabling an environment where care is provided in a comfortable kind of homely setting that enhances the experience for both the residents and the staff. And in care, the residents live there. It's not like a public hospital where there's big turnover. They live there, it's their home, and for most of them, they will never leave. So I think care leadership means providing the care in a homely setting, and then benchmarking the performance, working in hubs to share knowledge, and to treat each resident as an individual, co-designing their care with them and including them and their family in shared decision-making. And that's very much kind of what we do here. So care leadership in the retirement village is really about residents leading themselves. And in care strategies that emphasise wellness and the maintenance of the level of the independence in both mental and physical health that they currently have now and want to hold on to and enhance and not kind of lose. So the physical health is monitored in the background for the retirement village residents and in the foreground for the frail care home residents.
Great. And
Mm.
you must have encountered many touching stories when interacting with seniors who are living in the villages at Metlifecare. Do you
Yes.
have one or two stories of how the life of a senior has improved since moving in?
Yes, well, I particularly remember a lady, and she was an independent resident, so she was about 70. She'd been widowed, and she lived in a slightly industrial area in a large New Zealand city. But the industrial and commercial land had sort of encroached on her previous residential suburb, and her home had become quite isolated and kind of felt a bit unsafe. It was also close to a major railway link, so it was noisy and a little bit polluted. So, not ideal for a lady finding herself living alone. So I visited her at home, and we signed up the deal for her to come and live in the village. And she was very shy, and I have to say, I felt a few misgivings as to would actually she cope in quite a large, vibrant village which had more than 250 households. And I was sort of hoping quietly that she wouldn't kind of be overwhelmed by that. But one of the things we do is try and find out something about the person and what makes them special, what pursuits they enjoy, and what kind of interests they have. So she sold a house and moved about 150 kilometres to our village, and her daughter lived just round the corner from the new village location. So because I knew the kind of thing she liked to do, I introduced her to about 3 or 4 single ladies in the village who also liked doing those things as well. And within 2 months, she had joined 5 other village residents on a cruise to the Arctic Circle. And I saw her daughter in the supermarket the following week, and she said to me, "You have transformed my mum's life." And that was particularly pleasing to me because when you have unfit, frail people moving into care, if they've been living at home and not really looking after themselves, it's quite easy to see an improvement in their physical health and their well-being. And most of them respond quite quickly to their environment. But for an independent person, it's kind of a little harder to get that feeling that you've actually really helped them and done some good and almost like restarted their lives. And I always felt when I looked at that lady, I felt really that was special, that actually her life had been enhanced by coming to the village. And there's many kind of stories like that. And I used to pretty much always go and visit them at home, because when you step into someone's home, you immediately know quite a lot about them, what they like, how they live. And also it gives you an insight into that house and that community and then what that sells for. So you do learn a lot about them, and you're able to then position them in a big community, which might be a bit overwhelming to them, to give them the best kind of chance of success. And that whole thing about making it personal, making about them, treating them as an individual, getting to know them, that's really the key to so much that happens, consequently.
Is it difficult to have that first conversation to ask somebody to move into a village when they've always had an independent life and house outside? How do you persuade or help people to understand the benefits of moving into a village?
Well, I think you have to understand that, I don't know if you know, do you know Heidi High? It's a British comedy about a camp, a kind of like one of those holiday camps. And there are some people that would be completely put off if they felt it was like a cruise ship. and that there was any compunction to take part in sing-alongs, or, you know, I mean, like some people would just run a mile. So what you have to do is be able to read the person and to understand what kind of a thing would appeal to them. And sometimes you get clues about that, and sometimes you have to figure it out yourself. But if it's a bit of a shy, retiring person, like the lady we were just talking about, you know, you wouldn't go in all guns blazing with the fact that there were 5 happy hours a week and everybody gets, you know, has lots of drinks and all that, because she'd think, oh my word, you know. So you have to read the person and then try a few appeals. And if you can see whether it's appealing to them, and if it's not, then you know, okay, you know, let's try something else. And I think the most important thing is not to rush them, to tell them the absolute truth, to not sugarcoat the thing, to say that it takes people 6 months for it to feel like home. If you can reassure them that there's someone at the village that's a bit like them, that's normally something helpful. And then I remember one lady who was determined to hold out. All her family thought it was a good idea, and they were like, just go and spare, because they knew it was right. And so they wheeled me in to finally. So I tried a few in front of the family. I tried a few appeals, and she was stiff as a board, not buying it, you know, wasn't going anywhere. And then I got out my thing that I used to pull out when I had nothing else left. And I said to her, I said, look, we'll call her Mavis, I can't remember her name. Look, Mavis, this is not for everybody. The minute you say that, they think, oh well, isn't it? I mean, isn't it for me? If it's for everyone else, why can't it be for me? Because people actually want to be part of a community. Yeah. So, needless to say, she signed on the dotted line and moved into the village and lived happily ever after. So I think it's important that we go back to that theme that everyone is an individual, that there are different appeals. And when you build your village and your care and your systems and you employ your staff and set up your physical community, it's got to be something that will appeal to different types of people. It's got to allow them to hide away and not take part in things if that's not what they want. It's got to provide a range of activities and interactions for a range of people that will come and live there now, in the past, and in the future. So that's quite hard to do well. And good villages will be able to do that and will use their experiences and their interactions with people and their desire for feedback to sort of craft the whole environment to suit, so that people find there's something in it for them on some level. Yeah. And you know, in New Zealand, we've really got that to work, and we've got about 45,000 people living in villages, and they only started basically in the mid-80s. So we've found a way to create a living environment, which also has an insurance policy, because if you have ongoing care, they won't need it when they arrive, but they might feel they need it in 10 years' time. And if you can provide that on the same site, that will be extremely important to them and to their family members. And actually that just brings up another point, which is around the sort of question about care philosophy. That my key to everything is that you provide care to fit independent people as well as to the frail elderly. Those people need looking after and nurturing too. And if you can enhance their living experience and create that positive environment that often builds on what they've already started in their own community, they will thrive, and their the measure of both their physical and psychological kind of health will improve tremendously. And of course, they'll talk about it to their neighbours and their friends, and their children will thank you forever, like the lady in the supermarket. So, and in the care setting, the care philosophy is about it being resident-led, the shared decision-making, the individual care plans, and this will also enhance the residents' well-being. But I think the part about pastoral care for independent people is missed by a lot of people. And because care settings are hard work and you've got frail people in front of you all day, the staff can make the mistake of kind of ignoring those fit people that also need attention and need nurturing and need to have their confidence, reinforced and reassured about things. So as they're getting older, and they might fear getting older, and look at those people in the care home and think, oh goodness, am I going to end up, like one of them? So it's important not to miss the care for every resident under your umbrella, and also for all the staff that work with you as well.
I think that's exactly right. But we are facing a global staffing crunch, and to be able to look after so many people in care settings, you've rightfully pointed out that sometimes the people who don't need physical clinical care, they seem perfectly fine and they can be on their own. How do we use technology, or have you experienced some technologies that are useful in helping the staff to manage their daily grind and releasing them to have more time to talk to residents?
Well, this was something that we looked at Metlifecare and with some external consultants. And one of the things they said to us at the beginning was that New Zealand aged care and retirement village companies are generally a bit behind companies overseas on the use of technology and digital kind of transformation. And I think that's because we don't have a huge population. It's not like other countries where there's sort of millions of people to look after. And sometimes you can get away without doing it. So therefore, in a completely private sector operation like we have, it's missed. So we recognised that the first thing to do was to do a bit of digital transformation in our organisation. And so to establish and create and embed a new CRM database, a new finance digital system, and a new HR system, all of which we've done. In the villages, you have to walk before you can run. So in order for us to sort of pile on technological kind of solutions for the residents, you've got to have Wi-Fi that works. You've got to have an emergency nurse call system that's fit for purpose for emergencies. And also like the provisioning systems for maintenance. So all of that's all being done now to establish the platform in which you can put the Internet of Things kind of on top of that. But you can't do any of that until all that baseline is there. So we spent the last sort of 2 years sort of doing that. There are things in the care settings like care sensors are used so that you can detect how long a resident's been out of bed, to go to the bathroom, how long it takes them to get back to bed, how many movements in and out of the room. And there are two things which I think have been a big help and that haven't been particularly high-tech, but have been really punched above their weight in effectiveness. And one of those is automated roster systems for the care home. Because care staff have often a lot of lives and responsibilities outside of work. They may be caring for children, parents, they have kind of some quite complicated situations at home, and they want to work when they can work and when they are able to work. So I think efficient rostering, which gives the staff member what they want, provides some continuity for the residents, who, remember, are the same people every week because they live there. They like to see, you know, familiar faces on shifts. So we found that the automated rostering, with some common sense approach to dividing shifts and filling shifts, was extremely pivotal to us keeping staff on the floor. And in the case, we have a sort of like an internal sort of agency of casuals filling shifts. That was also, because of the technology and the app that was used for that, that was also much more easily done and much quicker and much less admin to get those shifts filled. The other thing we did was, again, unlike the public hospitals, the clinical leadership in aged care comes from the registered nurses. No doctor kind of anywhere. And if you're on duty and you're the senior and only senior on night duty, and something happens, you can feel a bit isolated from the point of view of support. So what we've done is we've got this sort of, I think it might be Zoom. I don't think it's telephone. I think it's Zoom. And we have a nurse on Zoom who takes part in the handover from the afternoon staff, and so then knows about the workload for that shift for the night. So that registered nurse in charge can contact that person at any time during the shift, check in, get support, run something past him or her, you know, talk over out loud a decision that has to be made about some situation that's developed. And we found that proved enormously valuable as a support for those staff, because it's no point telling someone about it in the morning. It's too late, you know, they need the help there. And if the person's done the handover with the staff on the site, they kind of know, you know, a bit about it. And we found that that's been extremely helpful, and not a hugely high-tech thing, but an innovation which has really been pivotal, especially during COVID, when, you know, for obvious reasons, there were all sorts of disruptions, even to the staffing patterns that you were trying to keep, you know, relatively normal. And then there will be a horizon 2, which will bring in the bells and whistles for the residents, things like, you know, data collection via IoT, biometric sensors for detecting movement in villages and preventing falls. And there will be efficiency gains through predictive care analytics, probably facial recognition and tech to help people age in place and stay connected to loved ones. I will tell one story about that. We had a village in the same street as a secondary school. It's still there, of course. And the food technology class from the secondary school walked down the road to the village, and the old ladies taught them how to make jam. And as a thank you, the students at the college trained 90 village residents in how to use social media and WhatsApp and FaceTime so that they could talk mainly to their grandchildren who were overseas. And again, a lovely, you know, lovely story, different parts of the community helping each other. And these people are quite embracing of technology. You just need to give them a hand to get started. And then once they're on their way, they were coming down to the village manager and skiting about all their successes. And it was, you know, it was a lovely to see. So I think
that's
really
awesome.
we're starting to get the baseline in place. And I think there's a lot of gadgets out there. And it doesn't hurt to not be to be a fast follower rather than a leader, because you might pick the wrong thing, and there might be some other bright shiny thing out there which could have been a lot better that you've missed or you don't know about. So we do recognize its importance, but we're putting all that platform in place first so that when we do, and the other thing is when you do launch something, I mean, even things like Google Home and things like that, you want it to work, because, you know, you lose all your kind of street cred if for some reason it doesn't work and they look at you and say, oh, you know. So yes, so we are stepping kind of slowly through it, but we do have a big ambition to do more in that space, probably at the end of our next financial year than we're doing now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And on that note, on technology and your passion for wanting to improve the lives of older people, have you come across any particular type of technology that helps with measuring quality of life?
Yes, I did actually have a think about that question. I actually thought that wall sensors are actually extremely good. They are very, very simple. And we tested them in a care home setting, which was relatively short-staffed because it was a slightly more, you know, like a rest home level where they didn't have very high needs. So consequently, they were quite lightly staffed. And the ability to see movement, the number of times they get up, the number of times someone comes in and out of the room, telling the staff that it was important that everyone left their room and walked down to the lounge, and then prompts about the walk and, you know, making that walk better, and then being able to look at the analytics of that, and then have the daughter come in and say, oh, mum just stays in bed all day and she's just kind of complaining that she never sees anybody. And you can say, hey, look, last month, you know, we can see by the analytics that she did X, Y, Z, you know, blah, blah, and she was out of her room 3 or 4 times a day, or whatever it was that the information was telling you. The other thing is that emergency call systems are very good if you use them to your advantage. So every village has, usually for independent residents, but there's also call systems in care homes, but you have more staff, so generally speaking, they have a slightly different role to play. But in independent settings, you can measure who has used your call system in that particular month or week. And you can particularly look at anybody that's used it more than once. And if it's someone that is a bit of a shy retiring type and maybe doesn't take part in the village social life that much, you can watch them and say, well, you know, is that person deteriorating? If they, you know, why have they suddenly used that call system 4 times in the last month when we haven't heard from them for 5 years? That means that something is wrong. And so it's about training people to notice, and that's one of the tools you can use to notice deterioration. And the other thing is, we used to also just notice, you know, who was coming into lunch and who wasn't, and just little kind of triggers like that might just be telling you that people are doing less well. The other thing is, we try to use devices for people with dementia as well. You know, things like the people that go for walks, you know, in their shoes and, you know, on their wrists and things like that. And we even took part in the development of a watch where you could actually have a 2-way conversation if you got lost, or if you hadn't got home on time, somebody could call the watch. And I have to say, I had more variable experiences with those devices. Sometimes they worked well, sometimes they didn't, sometimes the person simply took it off, or they didn't wear the shoes that they were supposed to wear, that you have the device in.
Yeah, like what happens when I have 10 pairs of shoes, right?
And I'm sure that all of these things will get better with time. But one absolute standby was that analysis of emergency call statistics. And, in the care home, when we started getting staff shortages, particularly in the less frail part of the care home, we would be looking at the emergency call for the same reason, that actually that person, maybe nobody had noticed that they had more difficulty getting out of bed, or that they were falling, or whatever it was, that maybe, busy staff coming and going kind of might not have noticed, particularly if they weren't quite as frail as the people down the other end, which sort of took all the attention, And so we did quite a bit of measurement of them. And the other thing we did was established a wellness clinic for the rest home residents who could walk, but they needed to be there, and they could kind of walk about, but they were pretty frail. And by having a wellness clinic and bringing them in every week to have some vital signs measured, talk about their weight, dietary concerns, wellness kind of things in the care home, that was extremely valuable to monitoring their ongoing wellness and fitness from a distance, rather than kind of in their face, because believe me, they prefer it that way round if you can possibly manage it.
Yes. Well, let's also talk about your background as a nurse and your career path. How do you think your background as a nurse has led you to where you are today? And what is your message to the nurses out there who are in the care sector today and looking to build a career for themselves in this area?
Well, I'm eternally grateful that the first thing I did when I left school was train as a registered nurse, because from that moment on, I think you have an ability to read people. You can look at a person and know really whether they're well or whether they're not well. Still to this day, I remember all the main things that I learned, even though I haven't actually been practicing as a nurse for really most of my career. But the instinct that it gives you, and the ability to keep calm when other people might, in a stressful situation, to deal with evacuations of buildings in an emergency. Sometimes those things happen when you're not in uniform on duty. In my case, when I was on a tourist boat off the coast of Australia and the engine caught fire, you can kind of be calm and you kind of have life skills. And the most important one was that my 16-month-old daughter collapsed in the backyard when I was putting out the washing. And I found out later she actually had a stone that had blocked her airway, which I didn't see. Oh. She put the stone in her mouth, but I didn't see that. And I just knew what to do. And she had stopped breathing. And I probably saved her life because I knew what to do, and I just instinctively did it. And I remember thinking to myself, causes of sudden collapse in children, because there was nothing wrong with her. She wasn't sick. And of course, and then the wet stone on the pavement was the evidence. And I fell apart afterwards, but I didn't fall apart at the time. That was the point. So I think the first thing is the life skills that it gives you. The ability to read people, the ability to be empathetic, and to be able to talk and engage with people in a way where they feel that what you're doing is appropriate for them, whatever they are and whatever way they want to be talked to, you can kind of find a way through that. When I was nursing, we were the first class it was a long time ago, and we were the first class to learn management practice, business management theory, as part of our nursing training. And most of the people in my class thought it was a complete waste of time. And they were there to learn clinical things and to, observe autopsies and go to theatre and all these things they'd seen on TV. I thought the management training was the most important skill that I learned in my whole nursing training. Time management, priorities, calm under pressure, methodical kind of approach to tasks, problem solving, all that stuff. So what I was pleased that A, I did that, and B, I put it to use almost immediately, because what happened was I ended up doing some work as a registered nurse in oncology, which was just actually starting out in those days. But then I ended up getting into other business settings, and then I did a management degree extramurally while I continued working. And it's my management degree and my postgraduate management qualifications and my nursing that I believe has equipped me to be a director, to be an operational director of a large organisation for 12 years, to figure out what to do, to enrol people to do it with you, because you basically know what it is they're doing because you've been one of them. Not that I would suggest for a moment that I'd be capable of doing a blood transfusion, but I do know the basics, and I know what their world is like. And I'd like to think that because I empathise with that, I can lead them and lead that business because I've been a registered nurse, and because that is still part of me today, even though it's, like I say, it's a long time ago. And so I think I would say to the young registered nurse or the graduating class, there's lots of life skills that you learn. And one of them is how to manage yourself and how to bring your best self to work so that you're of use to all these people that are relying on you and to your teammates. And I think that the training doesn't just come from the autopsies and the flash bits like the operating theatre. It comes from some of the more tedious bits. And of course, aged care is not kind of like considered kind of that. I mean, people don't really become nurses to work in aged care usually. I remember at a conference an American guy saying, none of us sat on Father Christmas's knee and said we wanted to work in aged care. But even though that's true, some of the best experiences you can have as a nurse and some of the most insightful and rewarding things you can do are things like aged care. Getting up in the morning and helping people that are relying on you and that need some help to get through the day. And I think that comes from working up a whole set of skills that you give to your job every day and that you inspire those people and, you help your teammates to succeed. And, you put a smile on your face and you don't get too dragged down by the difficult parts. And that can come, those real gifts can come from the most prosaic, ordinary looking, even slightly boring work settings, which actually can be extremely helpful to defining you and defining your career. And actually, if you are the registered nurse on night duty without the doctor in the house, then you're the one that calls it. You can show leadership. You can show that example to your staff, and you can walk off duty in the morning knowing that, well, you've made some good calls tonight and you've helped the people get through the night.
Yes. exactly. And I think aged care is not for everyone, but if you are in it and you have an opportunity to live this life and enjoy this career, it's really fulfilling. And thank you so much, Maggie, for being with us today to share your insights, your energy. I think the sector is really lucky to have you in it. And those who have interacted with you previously and in future, I'm sure they will benefit from the stories and the wisdom that you have. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
CarePage Business is the only feedback platform designed for the health and ageing sectors. With CarePage Business, you can uncover powerful customer experience insights, monitor resident or client feedback and complaints in a single, easy-to-use platform, and get the insights you need to drive continuous improvement in services and facilities. The CarePage Business feedback solution is designed to be accessible for your residents and clients. With large fonts and high contrast colours, surveys and feedback forms are designed for older audiences and individuals with cognitive or other impairments such as low vision. You can also offer surveys in a range of languages. CarePage business dashboards and analytics have been designed with the sector in mind, giving you clear oversight over one or multiple services. All feedback flows in real time into a cloud-based system where executives and managers can look at top-level reporting and delve into deeper analytics to look at feedback and complaints themes and identify areas for celebration or improvement. Free up your team's time managing and monitoring feedback so you can focus on delivering high-quality care and services. Get the complete feedback, complaints and continuous improvement solution designed for the health and ageing sectors.